2. Papaipit Linse and her son, Wales, 2024. The discovery of the crime. In early 2024, the peaceful community of Swansea, Wales, was shaken by a horrifying discovery. Emergency services were called to a private residence where they found the lifeless body of a young boy, later confirmed to be the son of 32-year-old Papaipit Linse. The child, estimated to be around 5 years old, showed no immediate signs of injury visible to the public. Authorities reported the death as suspicious and quickly began a homicide investigation. The investigation focused on the mother's mental health condition. Papaipit was found at the scene in a state described by police as severely distressed and mentally disoriented. Initial statements by officers noted she appeared unaware of the full extent of what had occurred. She was taken into custody for questioning and immediately referred for psychiatric evaluation. Medical experts were called to assess her condition, and early reports identified signs of severe mental health disorder, though exact diagnoses were not disclosed. The case drew widespread attention in Wales, both for its tragic nature and for the questions it raised about mental health care systems. At the time of discovery, the community mourned the child's loss while authorities worked to determine the precise timeline of events that led to his death. This section covers the discovery of the crime, the scene description, and the immediate actions taken by law enforcement. Background of Papaipit Linse. Papaipit Linse was a mother living in Swansea with her young son. She had no prior criminal history and was not known to social services before the incident. There is little public information about her employment or personal relationships, but neighbors described her as a quiet individual. No prior complaints or disturbances were reported at her residence. However, some reports surfaced that she had become more withdrawn in the months leading up to the incident. It was later confirmed that she had recently sought help for mental health struggles. She reportedly visited a general practitioner multiple times in late 2023. Her symptoms were described as severe anxiety, sleep deprivation, and disorientation. Medical documents, later submitted in court, confirmed that she had been referred for mental health support, but she missed several follow-up appointments. Her case raises concerns about continuity of care and whether more urgent intervention might have prevented the tragedy. Friends interviewed after the incident said she seemed overwhelmed by the pressures of parenting. No signs of substance abuse were found. This section explains her basic background, mental health warning signs, and the limited interaction she had with the health system before the crime, mental health context, and possible diagnosis. Following her arrest, Papaipit Linse underwent psychiatric evaluation to assess her mental state at the time of the child's death. Medical professionals involved in her assessment reported symptoms consistent with a possible psychotic disorder. The exact diagnosis was not disclosed publicly due to patient confidentiality. However, court documents reference delusions, paranoia, and extreme emotional detachment. Experts testified that she may have been suffering from an untreated or poorly managed psychosis. There was also discussion of postpartum-related mental health conditions, including postpartum psychosis, though the timeline of her childbirth made this less likely. It is believed that stress, isolation, and untreated mental illness played a critical role. Forensic psychologists emphasized that she appeared unaware of the reality of her actions during the crime. They found her responses to questioning confused and inconsistent. One official psychiatric report submitted to the court concluded that her condition severely impaired her ability to perceive right from wrong. This section focuses entirely on the mental health assessments and expert evaluations. It avoids guessing her feelings or motivations, staying strictly within the medically supported findings. The purpose is to explain the medical basis for her later legal defense and how the illness influenced her state of mind. Legal proceedings and plea of diminished responsibility. Papaipit Linse was formally charged with the killing of her son and brought before a Welsh Crown Court. During the trial proceedings, her defense submitted a plea of not guilty to murder, but guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. This plea is allowed under UK law when it can be proven that a defendant was suffering from a mental disorder that significantly reduced their culpability. Her legal team presented expert psychiatric testimony, confirming that her perception of reality was severely impaired at the time of the incident. Crown prosecutors reviewed the reports and consulted their own experts. After careful examination, they accepted the plea to manslaughter. The judge confirmed that while the loss of life was severe and tragic, the defendant's condition met the legal threshold for diminished responsibility. No trial was held before a jury. The legal outcome was reached based on detailed forensic psychiatric analysis. This section explains the legal definition of diminished responsibility, how it was applied in her case, and the evidence presented that led to the reduced charge. It avoids editorial opinion and limits itself to legal facts and procedure. It also demonstrates how mental illness is addressed in criminal justice settings in the UK. Sentencing and mandatory psychiatric treatment. After her plea was accepted, Papaipit Linse was sentenced to a hospital order under the Mental Health Act. This is a legal mechanism that allows mentally ill offenders to be detained in a secure psychiatric facility rather than a prison. The court ordered her to remain under treatment until medical professionals deem her no longer a danger to herself or others. The length of stay is indefinite, but subject to periodic review by a mental health tribunal. The judge emphasized that the sentence was not meant to be punitive, but protective. The child's death was acknowledged as an unimaginable tragedy, but the court also recognized a need for compassionate treatment over punishment. Papaipit was transferred immediately to a secure mental health unit in southern Wales. She will be closely monitored by specialists in forensic psychiatry. This type of sentencing is typically reserved for cases where the individual has no criminal intent due to their mental condition. The court followed precedent in similar UK cases. This section outlines the legal framework for hospital orders, how they differ from prison sentences, and how they aim to provide safety while facilitating treatment. It also explains how long-term monitoring works under the mental health legal system. 6. Public reaction and community response. The community of Swansea was deeply affected by the case. Vigils were held for the child, and local officials expressed condolences to the family. At the same time, there was an outpouring of public concern over how mental health services responded to Papaipit's earlier calls for help. Several local mental health charities and organizations used the case to advocate for better outreach and access to emergency psychiatric support. Public debate focused on the role of general practitioners and the follow-up systems meant to track vulnerable patients. Commentary from professionals and journalists pointed to gaps in early intervention. Some raised questions about whether existing child welfare systems could have noticed or prevented the tragedy. Others call for reforms in mental health policy, especially around mothers with young children. This section reports on the community and institutional responses without speculation. It includes only verified reports and public statements from reputable sources. It captures the broader societal consequences of the crime and how it sparked discussion about mental health support infrastructure in Wales and the UK overall. Legal and mental health system implications. The case of Papaipit Linse reveals critical challenges within the intersection of mental health and criminal law. Her situation highlights how untreated or poorly monitored psychiatric conditions can lead to devastating outcomes. It also demonstrates that the UK legal system can respond with flexibility and compassion in cases where medical evidence supports diminished responsibility. Legal experts noted that the handling of her case followed best practices for mental health-related crimes. The use of hospital orders is seen as an alternative that balances public safety with rehabilitation. However, the case has also prompted debate about whether preventative systems are strong enough. Advocates argue for better risk assessment tools, closer monitoring of referred patients, and improved support for at-risk parents. Mental health professionals emphasize the importance of early intervention and continuous care. This final section places a case in a broader policy context. It avoids personal commentary and bases all discussion on established legal practice and official evaluations. It ends by reaffirming the importance of integrating mental health awareness into public safety and criminal justice systems.